Welcome to the Take Action broadcast, separating fact from fiction.
Good afternoon. Greetings from Manta, Ecuador, from a country that today looks like what Canada may look like tomorrow. I am a retired Canadian lawyer with over 30 years of experience practicing litigation defending human rights in the courts of Ontario, Canada. This July the 1st marks the 155th anniversary of the official founding of Canada, our country, and citizens of hope and glory will gather to protest for and celebrate the ideals of our free and democratic society in Ottawa. This past year has seen our collection of inept, incompetent inanities, meaning our Prime Minister and Premiers, rule by decree, by edict, declaring emergencies when there were none, labeling fellow Canadians terrorists who weren't, and with logic that wasn't, using tools of despots and dictators. With blanket censorship, thanks to a bribed media featuring infantile journal kittens, happy to gag or smear or cancel anyone afflicted with curiosity, they suspended all civil rights. With the cooperation of the Canadian courts, especially with their many fascist, boot-leaking Ottawa and Toronto judges, they stole money from fundraisers. Their bankers seized private property, like the bank accounts of single mothers who kicked in $20 for food for truckers. They imprisoned pastors and shut down church services. They persecuted political rivals, throwing them in prison on bogus charges and paraded them in shackles in public, like Roman slaves. They drafted tow truck drivers in a near military draft to enforce their orders. They forced government needles into the arms of its citizens. They quarantined citizens in makeshift Holiday Inn concentration camps for which they were made to pay. The Trudeau Freeland junta denied all Canadians their fundamental human rights as guaranteed by their Constitution to gather, to travel, to publicly protest for their rights. Never before in recent memory have those Canadian ideals been under the gun. Literally. Trudeau declared an emergency upon a now exposed big lie and turned Canada into a police state to the world's condemnation upon a mere whim, or in his case, a whimper. He fled in cowardice and returned in disgrace. The moral and ethical bankruptcy and farce of the entire Canadian political system was exposed when our Parliament, our so-called representatives and defenders of our Constitution, in the face of a faked existential threat to Canada, which never existed, voted in favor of a 30-day extension of the police state. All of them were shown to be fools or frauds or both within 24 hours. Trudeau, prime fool and fraud, came out of hiding, again with a whimper, and as a dictator, appeared with his twitching sister-in-arms in high heels, Freeland, of Ukrainian Nazi family inheritance, declared the threat, poof, magically gone. The government stupidly claimed that this was all done because of something they saw on the CBC, which in terms of professional journalism is perhaps the biggest whorehouse in Canadian media for the government line. This insult to the intelligence of the people of Canada proves the contempt and the hatred Trudeau and his owners have for the average working class Canadian. They take their orders from their American and European mentors and get paid with political power and prestige. They wage wars with our blood for their profits. Never before have our customs of tolerance and politics of compromise and reconciliation been outright denied, with torrents of vile hate speech from the mouth of Trudeau especially, who called protesting BIPOC persons racist and white supremacists, Jewish MPs, Nazi sympathizers, mothers with concerns about vaccinating their babies, misogynists, and everyone else, homo/trans/ whatever, phobes. Freeland, the neocon, coming from a family in the Ukraine who enabled Nazis to murder Jews, and last seen in Toronto holding a Nazi banner, had the temerity to label fellow Canadians as terrorists. Freeland and Trudeau used the language of genocide to literally deny their fellow Canadians status as humans, who only, quote, take up space. Well, I guess that's best remedied by a trip to a gas chamber, I suppose. This Friday in Ottawa, our freedom convoys returned to sound their horns of protest against a government guilty of fundamental treason and betrayal. The present electoral regime is corrupt and has failed to reflect the true will of the people. In the last election, Trudeau retained power with a mere 5.5 million votes out of the 17 million who did vote, and exclusive of the 10.3 million Canadians who didn't even bother to vote in a rigged election, totaling 27.3 million Canadians who did not vote for Trudeau. What should be our demands in Ottawa this July 1st? To ensure true democracy, the electoral laws must be changed to allow proportional representation, as promised by the lying Trudeau. No longer should less than a third of Canadians who voted exercise absolute control of the government. Trudeau must resign and hold an honest and accurate election. Trudeau and Freeland must be barred from our politics as they have acted in subversion of our laws and customs. I would like to see a special court instituted and convened, and Trudeau and Freeland put on trial for subversion and treason. This government has lost the confidence of that great silent majority who did not vote for it, the working class people of Canada. It has lost all legitimacy. It has co-opted our media with tax-funded bribes and silenced all real critics. It especially has no mandate to lead Canada into a new and potentially nuclear war in Europe without first consulting with the people. And this government should compensate all Canadians who are unlawfully persecuted and penalized by Trudeau-Freeland edicts, coupled with their immediate apologies and immediate resignations. And the police should be made to reaffirm their commitment to the rule of law and freedom from political interference. We should call for the immediate resignation of the Ottawa Chief of Police and the RCMP Commissioner. These are just some of the demands to be made this July 1st, Friday, in Ottawa. So to all Canadians who are loyal to those ideals and customs, all Canadians who care for the continuation of this great land, Canada, we love, all Canadians who are obliged to ensure the future freedom and dignity and safety of their children, and indeed all Canadians who have come to this country to escape the torture and persecution of fascist regimes from around the world, this July 1st is your day to join a freedom convoy and show up in Ottawa. To stay home in the face of fascism, to stay silent in the face of brutality and police state tactics, to remain mute when others are shouting out for their freedom and rights, is to become yourself a fascist, a faceless member of the police state, an enabler of despotism and all it may destroy. Your silence, your cowardice, your cooperation was all that was needed from other people to enable a Hitler, a Stalin, to prevail and decimate their lands, destroy their children's futures, and impose catastrophes still afflicting the world today. Our freedom convoys are the last means of avoiding such fates. Our freedom convoys are our last bid to save our children from sharing their sufferings, their losses, indeed their enslavement. We need only look east to the Ukraine to witness what happens when a people fail to mount their own freedom convoys, when they fail to challenge their governments. If the Ukrainians had mounted their own freedom convoys when it counted, if the Ukrainians had fought back and ousted those politicians who dripped with corruption, who betrayed their people for foreign interests, who subverted and destroyed traditions of freedom and democracy, as we have seen here in Canada under the Trudeau-Freeland government, there never would have been a civil war. There never would have been the present catastrophe now unfolding as they face the utter destruction of their country and deaths of an entire generation of their youth. In place of freedom convoys, they see only now convoys of troops and tanks rumble through their streets to their doom. So must Canadians wait until we see those convoys before waking up and realizing that today, here in Canada, a war indeed does loom? It is a war by this government on its own people. It is a war declared by the Trudeau-Freeland government against our human rights and freedoms, a war against all dissent. To fail to protest today means a greater acceptance of it happening tomorrow. To fail to oppose it today may mean the death of our rights and freedoms tomorrow. This July the 1st, the birthday of our Canada, not theirs, should be for Canadians what the storming of the barricades of Paris was for the French in their revolution, the Boston Tea Party for the Americans in their War of Independence, or the forced flight of a king by the English in their glorious revolution. For it takes but a spark to start a fire, a small crack to crumble a castle. So let July 1st, with just one more person, you, in a mass demonstration in defense of our rights and freedoms, be that spark, be that crack, to begin to throw out the governments and with them the people who own them, who have chosen hate over love, iron fists over helping hands, fascism over democracy, who therefore have committed treason against the people of Canada and its constitutions. And so we must assert the power of the people. In what way that is to be expressed, in what way we reorganize our civil society to remedy the outrageous distributions of wealth over the impoverished, to include all without dehumanizing some, to end our endless warfare, which is simply the terrorism of the rich against the poor, will require great struggle and debate into the future. But let us start today, this Friday, July the 1st, and begin that great struggle. Let us begin that great debate. It can begin with a honk and a shout. So please, come to Ottawa, Friday, July the 1st, to honk and shout. It may well be your last chance. Thank you for listening.